Isang mapagpalang hapon po, Luzon, Visayas at Mindanao. A pleasant day to everyone, including our colleagues overseas. This is episode 2, season 2 of the webinar series Tackling the Philippine Learning Crisis Together in cooperation with the Philippine Business for Education. I'm Ed Fermin, the Vice President for Academic Affairs of National Teachers College. Isang mainit na pagbati po sa ating lahat. And today we are fortunate that this event is also being graced by um, not only teachers and educators from the field, but also a distinguished education champion and a board member of the Philippine Business for Education. Welcome on board to Ma'am Corazon de la Paz Bernardo, who's joining us this afternoon also. And of course, to the other school heads and representatives joining us from various parts of the country, isang mapagpalang hapon po. Our webinar series consists of panel discussions that allow our selected resource persons to spontaneously articulate their views. And we strongly encourage that our audience in the Zoom meeting platform will be able to use the chat facility in order for you to key in your insights and inquiries. And throughout the duration of this program, we hope to articulate the responses that are coming from our resource persons. Meantime, for our viewers over at the NTC, PBED, and the PEAC Facebook Live pages, you may also use the FB chat feature because we'll be able to respond to you through our digital team who would be able to locate and harvest those questions. So please, let's make this afternoon an opportunity for us to learn more about education, and in particular, as we are searching for the education president. Sino ba talaga ang dapat? Pagkakataon ito upang tayo makinig, makisangkot at makiisa. Now, after I have briefly introduced each member of our distinguished panel this afternoon, we will ask each of them to tell us their response to our opening question, which is, as an education champion, what has stirred much surprise and awe in you in light of the current electoral campaign? So we will now give each of our panelists the time to think about their answers. And after I've called upon them, they'd be able to share more. Our panel this afternoon consists of educators and a student, for that matter, at this is an opportunity for us to listen to a variety of perspectives insofar as Philippine education is concerned. Our first panelist represents the Office of the Student Regent, particularly the team of paralegals over at the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, and has been actively engaged in advocacies in terms of access and quality in higher education institutions. Please welcome our first member of the panel. We have Mr. Rafaelo Panghilog. Hello, good afternoon.
Good afternoon po to our audience, of course, to the members of the National Teachers College faculty, administration, and student. I'm Rafael Panghulan po, from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines. And to answer the question, it's really a good question, speaking on behalf of the students watching our live. For me, it's the students became more engaged to the electoral campaigns, not just for their own candidates, because I think most of the students are supporting various candidates, from local to of course presidential. And I think what really is striking to me right now is that the students, in particular, are engaged, sa mga campaigns and platforms, that is really important to their fellow students. For example, the educational system during the pandemic. So we could really see the difference, from the different campaigns, because like what the news media outlets, have been preaching, we could see this is the new way of campaigning. This is a new way of exercising the rights of everyone. So I think that is what surprised me, because I thought this election would just be an ordinary one, no? Just like what happened in 2019, 2016 election. So I think it is really good to see that our fellow students are really engaging, no, sa ating electoral campaign. Yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Elo, for that insightful sharing. And being the youngest member of our panel this afternoon and one who's really seeing the impact of all these things happening on the ground, we would love to hear more from you. Moving on to the second member of our panel, he's currently the Policy and Advocacy Manager of the Philippine Business for Education, who has previously worked at the World Bank, the British Council, and obtained his advanced qualifications at the Lee Kuan Yew School of Public Policy. He has been in the discussion panels of many pieces of public discourse on education development and teacher welfare and continuing education and a lot more. So please welcome our guest from the Philippine Business for Education, Mr. Marco Dominic de los Reyes. Good afternoon, Marco, and thank you for joining us.
Good afternoon, Ed. I thought you're going to say the second youngest member of the. But yeah, good afternoon, everyone, to the panel, from Ed, Ma'am Fe, Doris, and Elo. Our PBED board members here, Ma'am Cora, the rest of the academic and the faculty, students of NTC, and all our guests. It's really an interesting time to be part of the education sector, as mentioned earlier in the introduction by Ed regarding myself, that I've been a student and practitioner of public policy for more than a decade now. And what really surprised me, and I second Elo on his observation, regarding engagement. And may I add a second point, which is the standards. So engagement and standards. I observe that people are really engaging their candidates, different candidates for that matter, doing their fact checks, background checks. They're doing their own research, right? Because data is already available at their fingertips, right in front of their screens. And practically, that's also what we did in PBED. No? We did our research to engage the candidates, which later on I can also discuss further. And then second point that I raised is about the standards. And what captures this most is what I've been seeing always in the social media, parang meme, na kung mataas yung standards natin sa pagpili ng Miss Universe, dapat ganun din sa mga kandidato. Nakita ko yun, no? Nakita ko na parang mataas yung standards nga natin. So it's really an interesting time to be part of this, the sector, education sector, and now we're seeing the electoral campaign. Thank you.
Salamat, Marco. At natuwa ko dun sa sinabi mo, no? Speaking of standards, oo nga naman. Masyado tayo nagsiselebrate ng mga beauty pageants, and which is good kasi magaganda ng mga lalaki at babae mga Pilipino, pero kailangan din tayo pumili at gumamit ng mas mataas na standards for our leaders. So moving on, the third member of our panel is also what someone I will describe as the poster woman of private education, in the sense that she has really advocated for the complementarity between public and private education. I would say almost all her life as a teacher, because she has been at the St. Scholastica's college system for quite some time. And then she also worked with several educational networks and associations, including the Catholic Educational Association of the Philippines and the Coordinating Council for Private Educational Associations. Armed also with advanced qualifications in public policy at the Lee Kuan Yew School in Singapore, and her degrees in science education. So you're dealing with a science teacher here. I'd like everyone to be excited in welcoming Miss Rodora Doris Ferrer. Good afternoon, Doris, and thank you for joining us. We're just waiting for Doris to unmute her microphone. There you go. Thank you, Doris.
Thank you, Dr. Fermin. Thank you, Ed. Magandang hapon sa inyo lahat. Dr. Hidalgo, Marco, Rafael. Yes, you're the youngest, second youngest, so I'll stop there. Dr. Faye's not listening. Okay, so what was it that you're supposed to ask? What stirred my much surprise and awe, in the light of the current electoral campaign? I agree with Rafael. I'm so happy that the youth are so engaged. You'll see them all over the place, and they're really leading the pack. I think they're influencing the not so young as well to be as engaged as they are. In fact, I've spoken to a lot of parents. You know what the parents tell me? Ang sabi daw ng anak nila, pakiayos ang pagboto, maawa kayo sa amin. No, because it is about their future. That's why they're appealing to their parents, to really vote wisely. Sino nga ba si wisely? No? And then I also agree with Marco. No, Marco, I'm really not a big fan of Miss Universe. That's why now I am just so happy that the Filipinos have very high standards, for their presidents, for all their national and local officials, because I cannot accept that we have higher standards for Miss Universe than our choice for our president and our vice president, and all other elective officials will be using taxpayers' money in order to serve the common good. Pero hindi ako dito na surprise at hindi ako in awe, Ed, sorry hindi ko sasagutin yung tanong. Hindi ako masyadong masaya that when I saw the Democracy Watch Philippines survey identifying what the Filipinos feel are the most important issues this elections, medyo mababa yung education. Now, what came out was the economy. They were talking about the prices of basic services, reducing poverty, eradicating graft and corruption. That's what I'm so happy about, that the Filipinos are so concerned about that. They're also very concerned about defending the territories of the Philippines against China. And then medyo mababa yung ensuring the availability of quality education. So we always lament the fact that baka education is not very sexy for our politicians to talk about. But at the heart of all of this, how do we make sure that we will be self-reliant? How do we make sure that we are productive, that our economy will be able to recover, that we'll be able to fight graft and corruption because we have the right values and all that? That's education at the core. So yun lang, parang sana bigyan ng pansin, kaya tama itong kampanya, eduk naman.
Mm-mm. Thank you, Doris. And I think that sets the tone why we are gathered this afternoon. No? Tama yon, edukasyon naman. At baka nakakalimutan natin, nakakabit at nakaangkla sa edukasyon ang lahat ng iba pa mga usapin na ibig nating pag-usapan, lalo na sa panahon ng eleksyon. Apologies, but I think I will veer away from the reference to age as we move along in this discussion. But the last member of our panel is a distinguished educator that the Philippines is so proud of, having served, of course, the Department of Education in various capacities and many educational institutions, training and developing our teachers and educators here and abroad. Currently, she is associated with several networks also, including Education Nation, who's constantly looking at the transformations needed to make education work in the Philippines. Please welcome the holder of the Flora Y. Ilagan Professorial Chair for Educational Leadership at National Teachers College, former Secretary of Education, Dr. Fe Hidalgo. Good afternoon, Dr. Fe. Let's just unmute Dr. Fe so that she can participate. We'll just wait for her microphone to be fixed. All right.
Yeah.
There you go, Dr. Fe. Good afternoon.
Okay. I cannot help but agree with everyone who spoke before me about their impressions about the present discussions on education, particularly in relation to the candidates. I'm the oldest. But if I say I'm the oldest, you would be expecting more from me because of experience. But I must let everyone know that I started as a classroom teacher. And I'm so proud of that because having been a classroom teacher, I always look back at having been there because that's where everything is taking place and within the communities of the classroom teachers, particularly in basic education. So Talking about impressions about the current electoral campaign, first of all, I'm really happy to note that its candidate has a program for education. And if I'm right, everybody is talking about quality education. However, uh, it is defined, from the point of view of its candidate. Um, some are more pointed in terms of developing towards the skills for the 2025th century, what we always call VOCA, but we'll tackle that later. The enthusiasm of communities, to me, in response to what our candidates are talking about, is also very impressive. And I hope this goes on until the end, because it's really something to be interested in how education is preparing our kids for the future. Not only preparing them, but the quality that is needed to respond to the future needs of our kids. Even the nutrition program that each one has. I still wonder why some may not be present in some of those meetings, but probably it's too soon for me to comment on that. So let me stop here and continue maybe talking about quality education and what we need to be preparing for at this point in time.
Thank you, Dr. Fe. And don't worry, we have ample time for us to articulate those insights further. So, wag na po nating patagulin at simulan na natin ang ating talakayan. The first segment of our discussion is aptly titled, Ano ang Hanap Natin? Recently, most of you or all of you have seen how schools, colleges, and universities have actually focused on describing the education president's agenda. And the Philippine Business for Education, particularly its Education Nation team, conducted some form of analysis relative to this. So tatanungin po natin si Marco bilang siya isang mananaliksik hinggil dito. Marco, ano ba ang mga agenda na dapat nating hanapin sa karapat-dapat na turingang education president? Again, we tell our audience, please share your insights over at our live feed and also here at the Zoom platform as we continue with this discussion. Marco, please take it away.
Salamat, Ed. At tama yun, parang mas maganda na magkaisa tayo. Ano nga ba yung hanap natin? Pag gusto nating maghanap ng kandidato at sisiyasatin natin ang kanilang mga sinasabi, may dapat tayong klarong criteria. Yung Education Nation, which is a coalition of education advocates, individuals, and organizations, we banded together and we formed this 10-point agenda. And these may be broad statements, but at the core of it, it pushes the quality of learning up to a level that we are and that we will be proud of. So these 10 points can be clustered into 4. So let me start with numbers 1, 2, and 3 under cluster good education governance. At the top of that is our call to look and to find an education president. Also, education leaders. So Senate, Vice, Mayor, down the line. That these set of leaders that we have an opportunity to elect come
Recording in progress.
should be for education. They know education and they have plans to move about this sector. And by doing so, I proceed to number 2 and number 3, which is how do you move now the large amount of resources that the government allocates for this sector? And also the basic question, is it enough, right? The public sector is giving to education. And then the third is enhancing community capacity, which is, to be precise, local governments. We are not just talking about the national government, but also the local government. So that is the framework, a good education governance. Now, the second and the third cluster joining together would tell us that conducive learning environment is necessary for students to have and to learn at the classroom at the school. So number four is talking about eradication of child hunger and malnutrition. A student should not go to school hungry, di ba? Hindi dapat ganun. And then we have to support the sectors, student, teacher, and parents for learning continuity. And this is in particular about the pandemic experience that we have. And we don't know if it is over or when it will be over. And number six, we must also carry on for the children in vulnerable situations and sectors so that everyone will be able to go to school and have this learning environment. Now, if students are in that conducive learning environment, they should be able to have the opportunity to listen and to learn from excellent teachers, right? So excellent teaching and excellent instruction. That's the third cluster. Empowered teachers in schools. That we have an advocacy to empower our teachers for them to develop the proper instruction at the classroom level and also the pathway for teacher development. And eighth is supporting the complementary role of public and private education. That if the goal is to have high quality education and accessible to all, it's like riding a bicycle. You have two wheels, right? So you have the public education and the private education working hand in hand to get your bicycle moving. It may take a lot of effort and flexibility to know to ride a unicycle. Hindi pwedeng ganon. So dapat dalawa. So that's the third cluster. That's the eighth of the 10 points agenda. I move now to 9th and 10. That when I talk about high quality or standards of education, we talk about its whole stretch from kindergarten, from pre-basic, basic, higher education, and technical vocational education. That these pathways are available to all Filipinos. So I'm talking about here number 9, academic excellence in higher education, and number 10, lifelong learning. Our mindset as Filipinos, and ako naniniwala na ganun pa rin tayo, that we value learning and education as a core value. And maybe later on, I will show in the next few, if I'll have the opportunity, that at the core of it, Filipinos really love to learn. We're really interested into that. So you must provide, the government must be able to provide those pathways for every Filipino to achieve what they want to achieve and to learn what they want to learn in life. So these are the 10 points that we also use as criteria in the scorecards that we develop, right? So ito
Yeah.
na, ito yung 10 points.
Okay, thank you, Marco. No? And in a little while, for the information of our audience, you will find out more about how the analysis of PBED generated a better understanding of what our presidentiables in particular would really love to work on. But let's just ask first, Elo, Doris, and Dr. Fe, among the 10 items mentioned by Marco, alin ang sa tingin nyo malinaw na nailalatag na sa plataforma para sa edukasyon ng mga kandidato? You don't have to identify a candidate right now, but alin yung sa tingin nyo lately lumulutang sa mga agenda na to, sa kanilang mga kampanya o sa kanilang mga interviews or sa mga news blitz about them? What do you think? Let's begin with Elo. Elo, may napansin ka bang lumulutang na mga agenda?
Actually, merong isa na lumulutang talaga, and for me it's very siguro timely na isang platform, which is yung provide adequate resources to the education system. I mean, mga estudyante po like me, and of course siguro the other sectors kabilang sa education sector itself is really calling out our future leaders to answer the calls of the inadequacy, no, in the resources that is being given to them. Because to be honest, there are certain siguro public schools and colleges and universities, no, ang nahihirapan talaga. And that is the truth, no, sa ating mga kababayan na nanonood. Dahil kailangan ng suporta in terms of funding, kailangan din suporta in terms of resources ang ating mga estudyante, ating mga teacher, kasi we cannot give quality or the quality work na in-expect, no, sa ating mga members sa education sector kung walang suporta or wala silang kakayanan, no, to really siguro answer that quality, education for all, no? So I think that is yung narinig natin, no, from all candidates is dagdagan ng budget or siguro dagdagan ng resources, no, yung ating mga paaralan.
Okay, thank you so much, Elo. So the budget up front, resources. Let's now ask Doris. Doris, any observations that you have made so far?
Yeah, so far the answer is the same, no? Parang yung budget, medyo madalas yan mabanggit, no? Kasi parang very obvious naman, no, na kailangan ng increase ng budget. There are also those who talk about eradicating malnutrition. Some would say that. Siyempre, merong teacher salaries na lumalabas kasi that's a very attractive proposition for teachers, lalo na't botante lahat yan. Tapos merong isang konsepto na laging dekalidad na edukasyon, no? Which to me is, well, yes, we all aspire for that, but the how to do it is the more difficult part, no? The details, so that we can achieve, no, quality education. And there you talk about accountability mechanisms, you talk about ensuring that there's complementarity between public and private, and those details are the ones that are rather left out.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Let's now turn to Dr. Fe. Dr. Fe, may napapakinggan po ba kayo na lumulutang ng mga agenda mula sa ating mga kandidato? Dr. Fe?
Yeah, teacher welfare. Hindi ko masyadong nakikita kung paano yung teacher welfare being addressed head-on by our candidates. I know, of course, that will come later, but I'm anxious to know how much support are we giving our teachers who really also sacrifice a lot in the process.
Okay.
There's a lot of need to look at the teachers' resources. Even the teaching resources will have to be available at the localized governance. The complementary activities of local governments and school boards and the local leaders. No? I wish every teacher is also asked kung ano talaga ang kailangan nila. There's a lot of volunteer work most of the teachers do, which you don't know, no? From the development of materials, as well as even taking care of the health of the 45 or 40 kids in the classrooms.
Yeah.
All others, I agree with the previous comments.
So thank you, Dr. Feno. If you notice to our audience, no, I asked that question because from their perspective as education champions and advocates, they're already seeing some form of pattern of what is being discussed out there. But this forum today will afford you the opportunity to understand, do the candidates really respond well, and are they really do they really have a clear understanding of these priorities in our 10-point education agenda? So tanungin natin ngayon, ano ba talaga ang priority na dapat nating tutukan? Of course, nandito na yung agenda, pero tatanungin natin si Marco, based on your analysis at PBED Education Nation, ano ba naman yung hinahanap talaga ng mga taong bayan pagka ang pinag-usapan natin ay edukasyon, no? Bago niya ipakita sa atin yung proseso na pinagdaanan nila. So we will ask Elo after, from the perspective of the student, ano yung narinig nyo from the ground na dapat naman tutukan So magkaiba yun, no? Kanina yung perspective nung nakikita nyo, ano yung sinasabi ng mga kandidato, pero ano yung naririnig nyo sa ground bilang si Elo, umiikot yan ng maraming campuses, no? At maraming eskwelahan. Sige, so we will ask Marco to speak first and then we'll listen to Elo after. Marco, please go ahead.
Salamat. Una, tama yung nabanggit ni Doris kanina. In terms of education and other issues related to the elections, it seems like education is somewhere in the middle or at the lower rankings. But let me try to reframe that. In terms of interest of Filipinos, you'd be surprised that education in schools are actually more popular than Squid Game. It's actually more popular than Korean drama. Now, if I ask our audience right now, which is more interesting to you? Is it education or Korean drama?
Okay.
The intuitive answer is Korean drama, right? But that is not the case. I look at Google Trends and saw how Filipinos are searching about school and education as search terms on one hand, and then Korean drama and Squid Game on the other hand.
Yeah.
I hope.
I think we can show that, Marco. We'll
Yeah,
ask
yeah.
our team to show that.
Yeah,
there you go. Go ahead, Marco.
So you'd be surprised. The blue line across 12 months from March 2021 to today, it is Filipinos are more interested in schools and education even compared to Korean drama. Squid Game had a spike because it came out sometime September and then it died down. So that's really a fad, di ba? Parang may time lang talaga na naging sikat siya o interesado yung publiko sa kanya. But look at school, look at education. It is almost always consistent. Well, except nung December, nung nag-vacate, Christmas vacation. So that's what I would like to impress to everyone. First and foremost, education is a priority. It's a deep-seated priority of Filipinos. Just so we are kind of silent about it, and that is our role right now to really get noisy about education. Now, I tried to dig deeper. What do Filipinos mean with school, with education? What are they searching for? Please proceed to the next slide. And I found out, and they're searching for high school, senior high school. And then if you look at it deeper, Filipinos are searching for, well, aside from 1, 2, and 3, those are palabas in Netflix. But 4 and 5, Filipinos are looking for senior high school voucher application, STI, senior high school tuition 2021, rising, if you can see at the square at the upper right corner. So this is a rising trend that Filipinos are looking for it. How about, what do we mean by senior high school? Look at this about these queries of Filipinos. Senior high school voucher application, number 4, my dream is to become. It tells something about the psyche of Filipinos. When they are in front of the screen, it's like they're interacting and reflecting themselves. So, if this is the data, this is how I will sum it up. The immediate priority of Filipinos is to get to school, to stay in school, right? It's about access, as you can see here, voucher, which is the better senior high school. They're looking for continuity. But, sorry, not but I believe it's also because in the retention and the participation rate in basic education, pag high school, medyo nagda-drop yan eh. We have good and becoming better retention and participation rate in the basic. But come junior and then senior high school, dyan nag-drop out yung mga estudyante. So, the intervention of public policy, of government, hinahanap siya ng tao. So that's the immediate priority of Filipinos. But here is the ulterior goal, which I believe based on this data, that Filipinos are craving for quality education. As mentioned here, my dream is to become. right? And this is something aspirational. And as mentioned earlier, quality is not something that is readily seen. So again, this is our role, Ed, Elo, and the rest of the panel and education advocates. This is our role to amplify the voice for quality education, because I see based on the data that this is the ulterior goal of Filipinos when they talk about education. Thank you.
Thank you, Marco, for sharing those insights. We'll now ask, meantime, magmamatch kaya dyan sa naririnig nila Elo from the vantage point of students. So, Elo, why don't you go ahead?
Ayan, thank you. No? So, I really like the reference, no, Korean drama, because I think on the ground kasi, no, we have been talking to not just from my colleagues and constituents, no, sa Polytechnic University of the Philippines, but of course to other schools in NCR, and of course umabot po tayo sa Mindanao, Visayas, and Luzon, no, talking to their leaders, school leaders, no, and student council leaders, no. And there's a common denominator, no, na tinatawag, and that is the support for the students, no, in terms of their educational platform na gagamitin. That is the number one siguro priority, or shall we say parang call, no, ng bawat isa. Kasi to be honest, no, growing up in a public school, no, and of course continuing in a public institution, no, I could say that the life of a student is not really that easy, no, to be honest, kasi marami po sa ating mga kapwa estudyante or mga kapwa scholar, no, yung talaga nahihirapan in terms of being able to afford quality education while, you know, maintaining their yung kumbaga yung income, no, kasi most of the students nowadays, no, are looking for jobs, kumbaga, which is for me it's good, no, pero it should not be siguro the norm that we should follow, diba? Students, I believe, should be given the resources, the help siguro that they need in order to somehow focus on their studies more, no? Without hindi niya inintindi yung other aspects niya. And siguro yung isa din dito yung safe resumption ng classes, kasi I think most of the students are looking forward, no, na talagang mas mapaayos na yung sistema ng education dito sa Pilipinas. So those are the priorities, no, na ating siguro narinig from the different institutions, school, universities, colleges na nakausap natin, no, on our own capacity.
Thank you, Elon. And so you could see some points of confluence. Depende kasi kung sino yung tumitingin, no? But this afternoon, we will actually look into how those perspectives come together relative to what really we wish we would want to prioritize, no? And this is coming from the inputs of various sectors also. However, historically, there had been a lot of priorities in education also. And what better way to transition to this next segment by asking Dr. Fe and Doris, who have been working a lot both in the public and private education sectors. Malaki na ba ang nagbago o ito pa rin yung mga prioridad na hinahanap-hanap natin, particularly that we are now choosing a new set of leaders. Let's ask first Dr. Fe, no? Bilang si Dr. Fe, nakapagsilbi na yan sa ilang administrasyon, no? And of course, Doris, who has been watching out also the movements in terms of education priorities. Dr. Fe, do you think our priorities have shifted or there had been new things added onto the plate? Dr. Fe?
Well, in terms of priorities, the song is always quality education. But how that quality education is defined and how it happens and the resources for it is another concern, a continuing concern after this stage, I like to think. The quality that we're talking about could be quality control, quality in terms of the actual resources needed in the school itself. But when we talk about quality, it's also looking at how the teacher in the classroom is working in order to make quality education happen. And this is why I keep talking about the teacher in the classroom. And what happens in the actual interaction between teachers and the learners in the classroom, and the support of parents and the local governments. Um, Decentralized governance for me is very important, because education can happen more directly than waiting all the way for standards coming from the centralized governance. Asking the teachers what they need directly for me is very important. And even talking to the children in terms of how they are responding, particularly in terms of the recent pandemic we have. When children started identifying their study corners, their classroom corners in their homes, which sometimes are in the bedrooms together with their baby sisters and baby brothers. I'm making this as a story because I've seen it. I've seen a lot of it. But children continue to learn in spite. And the interest of teachers in developing materials for our learners is really very a great accomplishment. And I wish to congratulate every teacher for the efforts that they have done in the process. It's not easy to adjust to changing modes of delivery, online deliveries, unequal opportunities, and so many stories. So we need to look into this. Not only talking about what quality education is, but how it can happen effectively in the different locations. And therefore, I wish to invite much decentralized governance and the cooperation of local school boards. Why am I inviting? And local governments, because they know exactly what the needs are like.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Fair. So we have heard items on decentralization, the role of communities, parents, and the like. Now let's ask Doris if she shares the same views or if she has seen some of the priorities have shifted. Doris?
Okay. Actually, medyo maraming pwedeng sabihin sa tanong mo. But I'd like to start by saying that, yes, I agree with Marco. Education is really top of mind. It's everybody's business, I think, for all our families and homes. Kasi laging sinasabi, di ba, parang yan lang ang pwede kong ipamana sa'yo. Di ba, palaging ganyan, itataguyod ko kahit igapang ko ang edukasyon. So that's the Filipino family mindset. And that is something that we should be thankful for, right? However, looking at where we are right now, are we still where we are, say, in 2010 compared to where we are right now? It's 2022. If you will remember, in 2010, Marco, baka bata ka pa noon, first education nation, kanyan 10-point education reform agenda, the initiative was first moved to a 12-year basic ed cycle, and that happened, right? In 2013, we passed the K-12 law. There also was part of the agenda was increase support for private ed, reach 1 million grantees for ESC, and we've actually reached that. We now are at 1 million grantees for education service contracting in junior high school. So meron namang mga nag-move forward sa mga ginusto nating mangyari. In 2010, when I think the first time it was the call for an education president then. I remember that. I was with CEAP. And what happened at that time? Before K-12, our data showed that our fourth-year high school students were on the average grade 5. Yan yung data na lumalabas noon. That's why we needed to move to K-12 to improve the quality of basic education and then eventually support private ed and then look at complementarity and all of that. So where are we right now? 2022, Again, PBED data tells us that our grade 12 graduates have a proficiency of grade 6. That came out in a press conference as well of PBED, World Bank Estimate of the Philippines, 2021. So talagang problema yung access to quality education. In fact, every time we discuss it in, say, the PAC and all fora that we attend, we always say, we don't say access only. It's access to quality education, because it's not enough that there are seats, right? What if it's a diploma that's valueless? If a student who has a senior high diploma actually cannot find work, or when he intends to go to college, the HEI finds the student below standard. So it's a valueless senior high diploma, right? So kanina sa search, nakita nyo senior high, ang daming lumalabas. Kasi itong period ng senior high application, Marco, talagang all over the place, pati kami hinahound, when will voucher application start for senior high? Now, what has changed? As I said, we added 2 years. We now have more grantees in ESC. We actually have a voucher program that built on the success of ESC. But all of this will have to be, again, completely rationalized and eventually should move towards ensuring delivery of quality education. Now, dun tayo maraming problema. Sa senior high na lang, case in point, alam ni Dr. Fermin ito. Ang mga senior high providers natin, until now, there's no government recognition yet. All of them are operating with a permit from the Department of Education. And while we have proposed several instruments actually to quality assure the schools, it has not been implemented. Kaya ngayon, ang takot namin, ang mga senior high schools natin, medyo meron din dyan na hindi masyadong maayos, diba? In terms of producing the senior high graduates we envisioned in the K-12 program. Okay? Kaya nga, di ba, ang data lumabas, ang grade 12 graduate mo, grade 6 level. Okay? Isa pang problema namin sa senior high, sayang itong programa in the sense na kakaumpisa lang niya ng 16-17, and yet we've really not done an honest to goodness tracer study of even just that first cohort of graduates in 2018. Kasi ang ganda ng programa, may STEM, may ABM, di ba? May general academic, may TechVox strand, may entrepreneurship as an exit. We've not even found out what happened to our 2018 graduates. Where are they? Did STEM proceed to STEM? Yung mga nag-exit pa na may TechVox, nagka-NCs ba sila? May trabaho na sila? Napaka-bata ng programa, kayang-kaya natin siyang aralin. Because it's a very recent study. But from the PAC's perspective, we're happy that government has continued the grants, especially the Department of Education. We cannot say the same about CHED and Unifast. But because of the COVID school years, nagkaroon ng additional problem ang private. The 21-22 data shows, bumaba na naman ang enrollment ng private. Diba kung yung dati, usapang sustainability ng private, ang pag-provide ng subsidy programs, because of COVID, the students went back to the public schools. So now you only have about 6% of all students in private elementary, 13% of all students in private junior high, 33% of all students in private senior high. Yun, medyo mali yun. But that came from a 55-45 share in the initial implementation of senior high. So yun ang mga nakalagay dun sa report ng PBED about public-private education complementarity. Again, it's complementarity, not competition. Siguro, Ed, isa yun sa pinakamahalagang dapat maging paradigm shift na hindi nagko-compete ang public at private. In fact, when government supports the private schools, that is part of their responsibility as state provision. So it's publicly funded, but privately administered.
Yeah, that's an excellent point, Doris. And just to let you know, our panelists, medyo mainit na yung sharing ng insights sa ating chat room at saka sa FB Live. And isa sa mga paulit-ulit na lumalabas yung support sa private education. So lalabas yan mamaya as we move along. In fact, I'd like us now to be excited kasi maglalabas tayo ng report card maya-maya ng ating mga presidentiables. And I want our audience to get excited about that kasi may grade Talagang gigradean natin sila, no? Pero bago tayo mag-grade, let's go through an appreciation of the process that PBED has gone through to analyze the education priorities of our presidential candidates, no? Wala man dito yung presidential candidates natin, makikilala nyo sila in terms of their education priorities. So, aalamin natin kay Marco yan, and then afterwards, tingnan natin, no? Habang hindi pa alam nila Elo, nila Doris, Dr. Faye, yung actual scoring, no? Pero after nito, tatanungin natin ano yung kanilang honest to goodness ranking, no? From the initial analysis that will be made by Marco, or at least the process. So Marco, why don't you walk us through ano yung ginawa ng PBED na process of rating?
Right, thank you. We did it in a very simple manner. We look at two data points in a candidate's career: their past, their present, ganun lang. Their experience on one hand, which captures their past actions, their past pronouncements on certain education issues, and programs if they have been implementing it, projects, and so forth. So yun yung kanilang experience part. And then we look at their second part, platform.
Okay. Marco, sorry to cut you, ha?
Yeah.
We'll just share on the screen what exactly Marco is referring, no? Ito yung ginawa nila last time so that we can illustrate that better. So Michael, if you could just share the slide of Marco that shows the two criteria that they have used.
Right.
Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, so I mentioned the two sources of information that the data points rather, that we look at, their experience and platform, and you saw the 6 phases of the candidates which we researched. And the data gathering method is really on just online research, mostly for the experience part. For the campaign platform, we also did online research. We look at their website, their social media page. We look at news outfits if there have been pronouncements from the candidates there. But at the same time, we also engaged, and the same word again, engagement. We engaged the candidates. We told them that we have a 10-point agenda. We'd like to sit down with you. What do you think about this 10-point agenda on education? And then we sent out for interview questions. So looking at these two main data points, you would see, and I might be already talking ahead of the scorecard, but I'd say there is a change in state of the candidates from a previous state, meaning to say, I'd say their platforms are really parang, number one, walang education. And then when we started engaging with them, they form better education platform. So these are the two data points, experience and campaign platform. And then we reference the data in the 10-point agenda. So that's the basic methodology of this research.
Mm-hmm. Simple nung process, Marco, no? Pero nakagawa kayo ng 4 categories, tama? And on the next slide, actually, we can show you yung magiging 4 na categories nung presidentiables natin. So, Marco, why don't you walk us through ano yung 4 na categories na yun, no? To the members of the audience, gusto namin mag-umpisa na kayong manghula kung sino yung nandun sa categories na to, no? Pero iisa-isahin natin yan. Meantime, we will ask Elo, Doris, and Dr. Fel, let's please prepare, no? Tatanungin namin kayo ano yung ranking nyo so far. Okay, let's show the 4 categories of our learners on the learners tuloy. Sige, Marco, paliwanag mo na kung bakit
that's
learners.
True. That's true. When we were doing a research and we started engaging with them, parang it's like they are the learners also, no? As I mentioned, there is a change in state in at least some of the candidates. So in a sense, they are like learners also. And that's a good thing. So the first observation or category of the presidentiables is, let me start with the slowly but surely. Mm-hmm. So my change, my improvement, but it's kind of slow for comfort. but it's these candidates are getting there. Second, I'll go up, absentee. I won't expound, but maybe later, I'm pretty sure you'll know who it is.
Okay.
Third, most improved players. I think for myself, I always look for these people, and I think also for education, for teachers who improved the most from the start until nung nagkaroon ng classes, ito talaga yung natuto, no? So may grupo ng presidentiables na nagpo-fall under that category, most improved players. And finally, at the top, the good. This candidate is already good, but keeps on getting better. Who that is, I'll show later.
Okay. Talagang pinapa-excite. The excitement is building up, Marco, but without showing the actual results, no, tanungin natin, Elo, ikaw, ano sa tingin mo yung ranking ng presidentiables na from what you have heard on the ground, from what you heard of people in your work with schools? So, sige, Elo, give us your ranking. Don't explain yet your ranking, no? Just give us your fearless ranking. And to the members of our audience, pwede nyo rin isulat sa chatroom yan. Sino sa tingin nyo yung the good that's getting better, absentee, and so on and so forth? Okay, so please go ahead, Elo.
Yeah. Actually, I'm excited in this part because I think marami akong mga kapwa-estudyante nakapag-express na no, ng kanilang ranking. No? But starting from the sixth, no, I think my sixth place no on my part is former Senator Bongbong Marcos in the presidential ball.
Okay.
Fifth, we have I have noted Senator Manny Pacquiao. Fourth, we have Mayor Isko Moreno. Third is Senator Panfilo Lacson, and then second is Calyodi de Guzman, and of course first is Vice President Lenny Robredo. That is my ranking.
Okay, interesting. Okay, let's move on to Doris. Doris, what's your fearless ranking at this point?
Yeah, natutuwa ako dito sa chat, no? Both sa Zoom at sa
Maingay.
Facebook. Natatawa ako sa comments. I'm monitoring Facebook kasi. So
That's right.
ko is former Senator Bongbong Marcos. Okay. Fifth is well, it's a tie, no? Fifth and fourth would be Calyodi and Manny Pacquiao. Third is Isko. Ping Lacson, Senator Ping Lacson is second, and a close second to the first. And to rank one, that's VP Lenny Robredo.
Okay, thank you, Doris. Now, let's move on to, may common points na tayo, no? Wala pang nagtatay, ha? Pero tanungin natin si Dr. Fe, baka may ibang ranking si Ma'am Fe. Ma'am Fe?
Well, I'll begin with the first. First is Lenny. Second is Lacson. Third is Isko. Pacquiao. And the last is Bongbong.
Okay. Sige.
Anyone?
Si Calyodi po ba nabanggit nyo, Ma'am Fe?
Well, next to the last.
Next to the last. Okay. So, you have heard, our dear members of our audience, yung initial ranking ng ating analysts and reactors, no? Pero huwag kayong mag-alala. You have a chance to voice out also your choice, no? Kung ngayon tayo pipili ng ating education president, magkakaroon tayo ng live poll. So, tingnan nyo ha, may papakita kami sa screen ngayon for you to actually tell us, based on the criteria that have been given by Marco and our 10-point education agenda, ito ang gagawin natin. For those of you who are familiar in using Slido, ipapakita namin sa screen yung QR code. So just point your device on the QR code or go to www.slido.com. Ilalagay din namin siya sa ating chat room, sa Zoom at saka sa FB Live. Meron kaming simple exercise dyan. You can also rank the 6 candidates, okay? So while we are doing that, and you could start actually writing your answers over at Slido, take note, makikita natin yung live trend, no? So, sige, picturean nyo na yung QR code or pwede kayong pumunta sa Slido mismo, gamitin nyo yung yung actual passcode na nasa chat room natin. And then we will show the results as they come in. Now, in a period of 5 minutes, we will ask our panelists to observe the trend. And after that, we will move towards an analysis of the actual scorecards to validate the outcomes, no? So we will skip lang one part, pero ito po yung live poll natin ngayon. So nakikita nyo na po sa screen kung sino ang nangunguna, no? And after about 2 minutes, we will check and see what the immediate feedback of our reactors and analysts would be, no? So habol pa kayo, nasa chat room po yung ating Slido link. Pwede nyo rin pong picturean yung nakikita yung QR code sa screen. I-point nyo lang po yung device nyo, no? There are there's nearly 200, there are 247 now on one of our live pages, and there are 241 participants in our Zoom platform, no? So nakikita niyo po yung trend. Nakaka-excite to, no? So sana lang po walang may sakit sa puso dito or wala pang nag-aaway virtually. Ito po ay isang academic discussion, no? So let's try to get a hold of the trends that you're seeing. So let's ask our technical team, taas natin ng konti yung screen para nun makita nila yung trend, no? Kasi parang nawala yung number 6. Baka mamaya may mag-feedback sa atin dyan, bigla nyo na lang tinanggal yung pangalan. So pwedeng itaas po natin ng konti yung screen. O yan. Alright. Sige, mainit na mainit po yung ating chat room ngayon. At mukhang pinag-iisipan talaga ng ating participants. And I'm very happy that there are now nearly 150 people giving their responses, no? So statistically speaking, we can now make some conclusions here, no? Or early conclusions. Maybe what we can do, we will quickly ask the feedback, no? Bilisan lang natin yung feedback from our 4 reactors, no? Or panelists. What do you think about the trends, no? Kung election to ngayon at napaliwanag natin yung hinahanap natin, what do you think is happening here? This time I'll change the order. Let's ask Dr. Fe. Dr. Fe, what do you think is happening now with the trends? What's your quick feedback here?
Well, it's a combination of people coming from the north, coming from where the candidates are, who may know them better.
Okay.
And so since there are more in the audience.
Okay. Sige po. Thank you, Ma'am Fe. Let's now ask Elo. Elo, ikaw, anong quick feedback mo dito? Are you happy? Are you sad? What do you think?
I don't want to be biased, no. I have personal biases, no? Pero I am glad na engage yung mga tao in this sort of questions, to be honest. Kasi what we really want to accomplish here is that we want to encourage our fellow Filipinos watching here that voting or the election is the manifestation of democracy in our country. And in the results, I believe that yung sa aking ginawang ranking kanina, nagtutugma, no, dun sa preference ng madla. So yeah, you could say I'm happy, no, but I'm happy because siguro the engagement of the people.
Okay. Thank you, Elo. Basahin ko lang yung sinabi ni Meg Giles Kirby Tupa. Sabi niya, pwede po bang everyday may ganitong klase ng meeting? So, pwede naman, no? So araw-araw i-monitor natin. Pero siguro maganda rin may araw tayo na the education president, the economics president. Tingnan natin, no? Baka sakaling makita natin yung general trend. Punta tayo kay Doris. Doris, what do you think about the results that you're seeing on the screen?
Ako natutuwa din ako, no, na mataas ang ng confluence among the panelists and even those who are right now in Zoom and on Facebook, or in Zoom rather. That's Lenny Robredo and Ping Lacson. The two who have said, no, they really will pour additional resources for education. Pero natutuwa ko na si Lenny Robredo, no, ang choice ng marami kasi siya yung talaga nagsabi na i-declare na yung learning crisis. Kumbaga, gusto ko yun magsabi tayo ng totoo kung nasaan tayo. Kasi pag hindi natin sinabi kung nasaan tayo, paano natin dadalhin kung saan natin ito gustong dalhin?
Okay. Thank you, Doris. And finally, we'll this time, hindi natin sasabihin si Marco kasi pero sige na nga, entitled naman si Marco para sa personal opinion niya. O Marco, after your personal opinion, kasi pupunta na tayo dun sa pinaka-exciting part. No? Ipapakita natin yung actual scorecards and see kung yung organic votes na nakikita nyo ngayon, hoy, organic to, tiyakin nyo, minsan lang kayong bumoto, ha? Kasi very reflective ito of a live voting process. So Marco, what do you think?
Walang flying voters dito. Ah.
Wala.
Ang maganda rito, and I'm addressing everyone in the audience, your choice reflects you. Okay? It reflects your values. It reflects your aspirations. So I'm happy about that. Yun lang.
Sabi dito, Marco, sa ating FB Live, no, bigla nabuhayan yung audience. No? Sabi, respetuhin daw kasi yung mga choices natin. Uy, wala naman po kaming bina-violate na pinapakita lang natin yung actual trend. Sabi naman ni Connie Bienviaje Loro sa ating FB Live, no, this is the real survey. Naks naman, no? Tumaba naman yung puso namin dyan, no? Pero mamaya, yung issue na yan about surveys and all, let's see the other side of it, no? Kasi tingnan nyo muna yung granular analysis. Kaya tama yung sinabi ni Marco. Alamin natin yung kwento sa likod ng mga numero. So, what we're gonna do now is, Marco will reveal, I think this is one of the first few times, Marco, when a greater audience will see the results, no? So, kung kayo ay nakikinig sa inyong mga bahay or opisina, sana ma-share niyo po yung information na to. No? So, we will ask our technical team to start sharing the screen kasi ipapakita ni Marco yung analysis, and then, after that, there is one specific member of our panel na tatanungin natin about the analysis that they conducted. So kung excited na kayo, eto po ang resulta ng study ng PBED at ng EdNation. So go ahead, Marco.
Thank you, Ed, and thank you very much for giving us the opportunity. Let me reiterate that this research, as I mentioned, the methodology, this is not a survey. So we did not do a survey. This is a desk research, an online research, and we engaged with the 6 candidates. All right, so let's start with the slowly but surely. And tama yung karamihan kung sino yung sa tingin nila tumutugma doon sa description na ito. And these are Calyodi and Senator Manny Pacquiao. That that we see based on our engagement improvement, but it is kind of slow for satisfaction. But let me clarify more about Calyodi. Please proceed to the next slide. Now, si Calyodi, we saw him as a labor leader. He has a platform about economic reforms and labor rights. At the start of this campaign, until last week, and take note, until last week, he had very little to no mention about education. In fact, in one interview with ANC, where he was given a choice, ano yung unang gusto niyang itanong sa kanya. So, doon mo malalaman ano yung priority niya. Hindi niya tinanong, hindi niya pinili yung education. But this week, we saw that he has finally published his youth and education agenda, which is since this week lang siya, hindi pa namin naisama dito sa scorecard na ito. Okay, so si Calyodi had a score of, can you proceed to the next slide? There, 2 out of 10. Out of the 10-point agenda, he had very little stance and initiative. Granted, because he is he's coming from the labor sector, not from government. So perhaps education is not a sphere that he has been into in his past. But as to platform, as of end of February 2022, the check marks are where he has had a statement about. But this might change, right? As I mentioned, this week, he has released his youth and education platform. Let's proceed to Senator Manny Pacquiao. Slowly but surely. Okay. Si Senator Manny Pacquiao, his education story, if you can proceed to his slide, his education story is about himself, really. And he has talked about this sometime in 2019 or earlier, I'm not so sure. Because he was part of the alternative learning system. he enrolled and took his bachelor's degree. But unfortunately, parang kulang. He could have put it in his narrative. During the KBP forum, we are glad to see him have slides specifically on education. Though he only mentioned about one gadget, one teacher, one student. So manipis yung kanyang platform. So his score, can you proceed to the next slide, please? Is 2.5 out of 10 stars. So his mentioned platforms about one student, one gadget, student, teacher, etc. That falls under learning continuity. It's under the context of the pandemic. And then he was talking about the alternative learning system, and that falls squarely on agenda number 6, that children in vulnerable situations and sectors will be able to go to school. So that's Senator Manny Pacquiao.
Okay. We'll pause here. Thank you, Marco. No? Para po sa audience natin, nagpapasalamat po ako, hindi tayo nag-aaway, and just keep on looking at the data. No? Maganda itong pinag-uusapan. So we will hear from Elo. Elo, sabi mo kanina medyo nagtugma yung analysis mo. No? What can you say about the trends that you have seen for our first group, slowly but surely? Elo?
Ayan. Siguro, for me, no, actually, tugma, no, yung binigay na scorecard for the vote. Pero, I'd give Caliobi, siguro, the credit that he deserves. Kasi, based on my own, kasi of course, before I agreed to talk here, so syempre, nag-research ako personally. And I have found out that Calyodi is currently pushing the students' Magna Carta or the Magna Carta for students, which is very close to my heart, since the student sector needs to have a stronger voice, no, and to have a stronger platform, no, so that they could fight for their rights as well. No? Kasi we have Magna Cartas for women, diba? That I think it is time that we push the Magna Carta for students to symbolize or to represent the needs of the students. And for Senator Manny Pacquiao, I agree on the given scorecard, because according to my research, his one student, one gadget program, yun pa lang po yata, no, yung makita nating specific goal niya or yung specific na kanyang platform for the education, which is very, siguro kulang pa. He needs to specify pa kung ano pa yung kanyang bring in, no, sa table in terms of the education sector.
Okay. Thank you, Ella. People are messaging me directly and telling me, sunod na agad. Okay, sige na nga. Marco, mukhang hindi natin ito mapigilan kasi exciting yung susunod na category, no? Go ahead, Marco.
Yeah, yung next category kasi natin yung absentee. At sabi ko nga, mukhang kilala na ng audience natin. Tama yun, nababasa ko dun sa chat box. So yung under the absentee category natin, so isa lang naman siya, si Senator, former Senator Bongbong Marcos. He had a legislative track record and also bills filed on education. For example, increasing teacher salary, moratorium and SUC creation. He actually also signed on the K-12 law, both the committee report and in the third reading of the Senate when he was a senator. But noong 2016, he kind of flip-flop. Biglang hindi na niya gusto, even though he signed the law. And then in his website, there was no platform. And then during the I would say quizzes, parang quiz, di ba? Nung nag-engage na kami sa mga kandidato, tinignan na namin sila, paano sila sumagot sa mga debates. Hindi siya uma-attend sa mga debates. And then he and his team did not engage also with the Education Nation. His staff said that in the reply email to us that he is busy. So okay, we understand, a very busy person. So that's the category where Senator Marcos is. His scorecard, if you can proceed to the next slide, is that he got 3.5 out of 10. So as I mentioned, he has a legislative record, and that is shown or marked in the stance or initiative column, right? But in his platform, he mentioned one, which is to establish a national education portal. And that falls under learning continuity. All right. So that's one. So if you average 6 checks on initiative and stance, that's 6. And then one, if you average that, that's 3.5. Yeah, so this is the score of Senator Bongbong Marcos. Do I
Great.
proceed to the next or do I stop here?
We'll just ask first, para hinay-hinay lang, no? Yung mga inaatake na po sa puso ngayon, hinay-hinay lang, no? I just want to share with the rest of the team here, no? Medyo naging maingay bigla sa FB Live at saka sa Zoom, no? Pero eto, tingnan natin. Doris, what do you think about the score and the data you're seeing on the screen about former Senator Marcos?
It's very objective, no, what was said by Marco from Philippine Business for Education. Kasi nga, kung sa recitation, paano nga naman magre-recite yung absent, no? You know, when I was teaching at Saints Co Manila, alam niyo yung ginagawa ko sa recitation, walang taasan ng kamay. I will just call on anyone who is there because baka may bibo taas ng kamay. 'Di ba? Meron namang magaling pero ayaw magsalita. So I just like call on everyone random. Because you can actually say, I don't know the answer, pinag-iisipan ko pa. But that to me is already being present, means that number one, there's a lot of courage on your part na harapin mo ang taong bayan, and a lot of honesty on your part to say, anong kaya mo, anong hindi mo pa napag-isipan, ano pa yung, ano pang gagawin mo moving forward, kasi nga wala ka pang sagot at this time. So honesty and courage, that's important for president. Of course, for all of us, no? But presidente pa ba? Hindi natin hahanapin yun. Pangalawa sa akin, parang accountability. Kasi kapag may binitawan kang salita, hahanapan ka na ngayon ng resibo. Ang gagaling ng mga lalo na yung mga kabataan, no, hanapan ng resibo. So pag hindi ka dumarating at lahat na lang, no, sasabihin mo, gusto ko diretso sa tao in a political rally, hindi ka naman matanong ng follow-through questions ng mga yan kapag pagkatapos mong nagsabi ng marami mong promises, right? So the accountability is missing if you do not engage at say debates or discussions where follow-up questions can be asked. And pangatlo, ito maraming nagsasabi nito, nakikita ko sa post, respeto naman, di ba? Please respect the voting public, respect us, your constituency, magpakita ka naman. So that's my take about that absentee, no? Kasi hindi talaga siya sa mga eskwelahan, di ba? Alam niyo to, yung mga teachers na nandito, major offense yan, di ba? Yung habitual yung absenteeism, right, is a major offense and it's sanctionable. So there.
Okay. Thank you, Doris. No? Bigla na lang nagsabi yung mga teachers natin bilang tayo ay nasa mga virtual classes ngayon, no? Yung absentee daw kasi medyo consistent kahit nasa virtual or physical classroom, hindi talaga nagpapakita. So sige, just keep those insights coming in and we'll try to digest as much as we can, but we'll move on to the next category. So Marco, again, may nag-direct message. Naiinis na, bilisan daw natin. Ano na yung result? Okay. Sige. Marco, go ahead.
Next category is the most improved players. So in the course of like only just two months of our engagement with these candidates, we saw that they have shown interest on education. And we saw their marked improvement in terms of platforms. Parang from zero to hero, parang ganun eh. So let's start with Manila Mayor Isko Moreno. All right. Now, on his background, he has impressive inputs to education in Manila. So you have there the 2.5 billion peso SEF. Kasi mayaman ang Maynila. So may mga infrastructure siya, may buildings siyang pinatayo for the Manila Science and so on. Excellent pandemic response. No? He's like a poster boy for LGUs also. And then nagbigay rin siya ng ayuda sa mga estudyante. At the start of the campaign, he had like broad or general statements about education. But what I gathered also is he has really some, I'd say, advisors also in different fields. Perhaps education is one of it. Now, during the KBP forum, he specifically had an analysis and solution to education problems. And when we look at his education solutions, it kind of mirrors. Sabi ko, parang kinopya na yung binigay natin na 10-point agenda from the early childhood to the 4.3 education budget to GDP ratio hanggang sa dulo yung workforce, training the workforce. Parang ito na rin yung natin. So we saw his transition. So if we gave him a score based on his experience and his platform, what we saw in his performance, 7 out of 10, right? 7 out of 10. So yan yung kanyang mga check marks. Halos lahat nandun na regarding stance and initiative, and then also in the platform. Right. Next person in the category of most improved players, Senator Ping Lacson. Now, Senator Ping Lacson is a person that you wouldn't think as an education person or senator. And rightly so. His legislative background is really more on like a fiscalizer, right? He's a fiscalizer. He's the police. He's the police in the Senate, and he's always looking at the budget. He's very keen on details about the budget. Now that is his role, and his education bills is more on peace and order, right? But come engagement time, yan. So yung nakikipag-engage na kami sa team ni Senator Ping Lacson, he was able to develop his agenda and he responded to our questions, which I believe also helped him in his platform. He delivered it during the KBP forum. He had specific slides for education. And as to effort, he has a video. Nag-record siya ng video for Education Nation. You can see it in the Eduk Naman Facebook page. So may effort din na nilaan itong learner natin sa Senator Ping Lacson. So I'll stop there before I proceed.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, itong chatroom natin talagang interesting na siyang tingnan sa ngayon. But here at this point, bilang meron tayong champion ng education improvement dito, nakita niyo na to from one leadership to another. Ma'am Fe, what do you think po about the results of the scorecards of Senator Lacson and Manila Mayor Isko Moreno? Ma'am Fe, your quick insight, please.
My quick response to Manila Mayor Isko is he delivers on promise. But for Ping Lacson, I was quite surprised about his very relevant interest in the delivery of education, conducive learning environment, as well as empowered teachers and schools. I did not expect that much from him, I'm sorry to say, but it was a surprise. And I wish that the good education governance that he speaks about is also going to come true. Assuming he gets the position. But I think these are very important considerations in education. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Dr. Fe. And that sense of surprise is actually transitioning to a more tense version because now that everyone is expecting to understand, kasi isa na lang yung natira nating choice. Marco, go ahead.
No, but quickly, sorry, I forgot to show Senator Ping Lacson's scorecard.
Please.
Yeah, so just
all right. So let's show the scorecard. There you go.
8 out of 10. And as I'd say, yun nga, sabi ni Dr. Fe, she's surprised. Even us, in the engagement, we saw his growth as in his understanding of education. So that's why I look at his platform column. Lahat may check.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, so Marco, I think everyone wants to know. Kasi kilala na natin yung number one, no? But they want to hear the actual analysis that has been made. So, and people are asking, can they take the screenshot and share this with people? Yes, because this is public information and they came from actual verifiable, veridical, and ultimately correct items and facts. So, Marco, please go ahead.
Thank you. And the last category is the good. And she's good and she keeps on getting better. Vice President Leni Robredo. Even when she announced in October 2021 And then she filed her certificate of candidacy that she will run for presidency. Even during that time, or maybe around November, December, she already has a website which includes education. But of course, not surprising. VP Lenny Robredo already is really on the ground and has called upon government to declare a learning crisis. So she has comprehensive and specific education platform. As I mentioned, it's already there in the website, easily verifiable. She has many accomplishments under the office of the vice president, despite of meager resources. That tells a lot, right? And that happens, as we see, because of her many partnerships. Parang she attracts people to support the programs and the goals. So you have partnerships with business, multilateral agencies, and NGOs. As to engagement, during the KBP forum, we saw, similar to some of the candidates, she has a specific, she mentioned education in that span of 5 minutes, okay? And in terms of engagement, she has been in coordination with different youth groups, education advocates, and Education Nation. So I believe that's the key thing, why she keeps on getting better. She listens, and so because of that, her understanding of the problem and her solutions also grow. As to effort, Vice President, second highest officer in the land, she took time and recorded a video and answered our questions in Education Nation. That's also we published that in our website. So effort, yung sipag, and she listens. And her scorecard, it's 9.5 out of 10, right? So as to initiative and stance, perfect. Actually, I believe there was, because she answered the 10-point agenda in the platform. I guess na-miss lang niya yung isang question. Kaya siya walang check mark doon sa agenda number 8. But as to initiative, I think that her response to private education, she wrote the Department of Education at the height of the pandemic. She said that these are the non-negotiables of educators. She uses her position to amplify the voice of the educators of the private education sector. So that is something that we really took note. So that's why her score is this.
Okay. Thank you so much, Marco. No? And now that we have heard everyone speak, no, I'm sure that we would be eager to find out from our 4 panelists, the three panelists rather, aside from Marco, their quick response on the choice that has emerged. Not the choice, but the outcome of the actual analysis. No, Elo, what do you think of this analysis that has been given on the education orientation of VP Lenny Robredo? Elo, as a student.
Ayan, thank you. On my part kasi, no, I was one of those students or student leaders who really researched the educational platform of VP Lenny. And to be honest, the result that was presented today really resonates kung ano nga ba talaga yung platform na dinadala ni VP Lenny. And of course, the manifestation of several student body, no? I mean, the trend of conducting mock elections, no, sa different universities and campuses, no, shows that students really trust VP Lenny in terms of the future of the educational system sa ating bansa. And siguro on my part kasi, no, the most specific that I could get, no, is that yung kanyang learning hubs na institute, no, as part of the program of the Office of the Vice President. It really answers the specific solutions that the students is currently calling out, no, sa ating mga government officials and of course public servant. And yun nga, for me, VP Lenny is the best candidate that represents the students, no, speaking on behalf of the student body across the Philippines.
Thank you, Elo. No? Napaka-powerful ng statement, no? In behalf of all the student bodies, no? And we're saying na magiging malaki ang role ng kabataan natin in choosing, no? Na in this particular election. So thank you so much, Elo. Now let's turn to Doris. I know that you have given your insights earlier about VP Lenny, but here is a more granular picture. What do you think?
Na gusto ko sabihin, no, nung nasa UST na debate, natutuwa ako sa kanya when she spoke about what she did, no, during the COVID pandemic and the response, up to yung buwan kung kailan niya inuumpisa ng mga programa, naubusan pa siya ng oras. So what does that mean? Masipag siya. Tinatrabaho niya at siya mismo ang nagtatrabaho, kaya kaya niyang i-enumerate pati kung anong buwan inumpisahan ng programa at kung anong nangyayari sa isang programa. Napakahalaga nun, no, na masipag ang ating magiging officials, lalo na ngayon na we're in a very difficult situation. So I'm very happy that, you know, she ranked number 1 kasi nga masipag, sabi na rin ni Marco, nakikinig siya sa mga maraming sektor. In fact, in one meeting that I fortunately had with her and we were discussing this, and thank you Marco for saying baka hindi niya lang na-check yung sa complementarity kasi medyo nagtampo na kami, bakit nawala yun? Ang sabi niya doon sa meeting, gawin natin kahit na mahirap. Yun yung gusto kong attitude eh. Kasi hindi naman pwede na parang okay lang, wag mong aminin na may learning crisis, wag mong aminin na may problema tayo, no? Tungkol sa edukasyon, sa subsidy programs, hindi yata maayos ang pagkaka-rationalize, hindi yata talaga kaya yung universal access to quality tertiary education. Gawin natin kung ano yung dapat kahit mahirap. Diba? Kasi nga, buo yung loob mo because you really want to serve. So that was very striking for me, no, nung sinabi niya na 6 na taon lang ito, if ever I win the presidency, pero gawin natin kahit mahirap. Because you want to make sure that the changes that we will implement, whatever we will do, is for our children and our children's children and the future of this nation.
Doris, I thought kakantahin mo na yung I believe the children are the future.
Parang hindi
Pero
ako
narinig ko. Pero Doris, no, may nag-comment about that singular item, the public and private education complementarity na walang check. May nag-recommend, sabi ni Sir Sinon Arago, Ma'am Doris will just orient Ma'am Lenny about public and private complementarity if she will be chosen as DepEd Secretary. O Doris, comment.
Yan, smile lang. Wow. Hindi yan ang iniisip natin. Ang gusto natin, ayusin natin ito, magtutulong-tulong tayo, but we don't look at, even without a position, everyone can always.
Yes. Thank you so much for that, Doris. And finally, we are very eager to hear from a former Secretary of Education, her insight into this final segment of Marcos sharing with us. Dr. Fe, what's your take on the results that you're seeing on the screen right now?
Well, there's a wide gap between the first and the second. But looking at the result, I've always thought that the plans of Lenny Robredo has always been coming from the ground. When I say coming from the ground, looking at the teachers, lagi na lang akong teachers, the learners, and quality education. She has always been consistent about her plans, but every time she talks, because I follow her, there's always something new added to the original ones that she has been talking about in public. The complementarity between public and private, I don't see that as a problem with her, because she knows exactly and maybe have experienced both. His consistency on the ground, the parents, the learners, and problems that affect the education of our learners in both basic education and tertiary levels seems to be very clear to her, and therefore in the last public pronouncements she had, parang hindi na siya nag-iisip, alam na niya kung ano yung solusyon na na susundin niya if she gets elected. So I wish that all her dreams will come true. No, of course, that means if she gets elected. But we would like to see her through carrying out her dreams, in the immediate future. And she continues to enrich whatever pronouncements she has. And so that can only be carried out, implemented as we move on to the final decision of the public.
Thank you so much, Dr. Faye. And I think the kind of insights that our panelists have shared seem to be communicating to us that, yes, you have heard about all the surveys out there, but a very granular analysis like this really matters, particularly to the voters who are thinking of their choices right now. You might have a choice right now, but unless you understand the facts, you will not be able to understand this better. I understand that there are some people who would like our panelists to respond to the outcomes of the current surveys. And we have just about 1 minute from each of them to tell us about their opinions because compared to the surveys, this one is not a survey, it's an analysis of what the candidates are really saying. No? So let's ask Marco because he's one of the principal analysts here. So Marco, a participant has asked, what's your feedback on the ongoing surveys out there? Go ahead, Marco.
Well, again, it reflects the values, choices of the persons who got surveyed. But at the end of it, there will be just one survey, and the ultimate survey will happen in May, right? So everything at this point until before elections, I think we have to use that time to discern, pag-isipan pang mabuti, sino yung presidente na talaga makakatulong sa'yo at sa sektor ng edukasyon. And then you make the final survey on election day.
Right. Thank you, Marco. Over to you, Elo. What do you think about this? Go ahead.
Yeah. Siguro short story na pwede kong mai-share is that one of my neighbors is one of the respondents. So I don't know what survey is it, pero I think it was SWS, no. And the one who is conducting the survey just dictated names of candidates, no, rather than letting the voters, no, or the respondents, no, answering the forms. And to be honest, the respondents are really busy doing their chores during the duration of the survey. So what does this manifest? This is a manifestation that we should not trust all surveys that is being released because we need to consider other externalities that is happening on the ground. And that is the truth that perhaps there is a siguro nakaka-apekto din, no, sa pag-survey yung mga forms or siguro structure. But at the end of the day, I agree with Marco na the final survey that matters is the upcoming May elections. Kasi siguro brief background lang or looking back in history, no, there are surveys na talagang napakalayo like for example, the US survey and of course the 2016 elections, no, na talagang we are all surprised kasi I think siguro dun sa in terms of the vice presidential and presidential, no, talagang hindi nag-manifest or hindi nag-materialize yung survey na tinatawag. So I think what matters the most is the final survey which would happen on the upcoming May elections.
Okay, thank you, Elo. Then we move now to Doris for her quick feedback about the surveys that have been happening so far.
Okay, regarding the pre-election surveys, no, wala tayong dahilan para hindi pagkatiwalaan ng SWS at ang Pulse Asia, no. These are credible organizations. Pero yung result ng survey, as they also naman say, is just a snapshot of that particular period of what's the preference so at that particular time. And the way that it is being asked for some of this, they also explain this, no, na tinatanong nila yung mga tao kung sinong iboboto nila para maging presidente. Now, what is one biggest factor there? Totoo ba yung sinabi ng tao? Is it really something na parang guarded lang siya, parang ayaw niya lang na makomosisyon dun sa medyo delikado, kasi kung anong isasagot niya sa'yo, yun ang i-reflect ng survey. So there you look, but that is something that you tell someone about. But the vote is one between you and your conscience, right? And no one else will see that sa balota, right? Or when you vote on May 9. So baka yun mas totoo. Kasi ikaw na lang yun, walang iba, wala kang kaharap, walang pwedeng magsabi sa ibang tao, yan, siya anong preference niya, and you think that will make you insecure, no? So, okay naman ang pre-election surveys, pero sana, I always say this to Pulse Asia, SWS, pagkatapos ng survey results, pakipaliwanag kung paano kinonduct ang survey, at ano ang dapat nating maging take-away sa mga survey na yan.
Thank you, Doris. And finally, we listened to Dr. Fei about her insight into this question that was raised earlier. Dr. Fei, your opinion on these surveys, please. All right, let's unmute Dr. Fei first. Dr. Fei, you're still on mute.
Yeah, surveys keep informing us, not only us, the public, but the candidate herself, how to keep improving and how to deliver on promise in the future if she is elected. It also makes us happy that we can share our ideas in relation to their platforms. For example, Lacson, I never expected the inclusion of so many things or so many points on education, and all at once it's there. So if we continue to have surveys like this, it not only helps the candidate, it helps the voters, and it helps education in general.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Fei. I know that there are some people who raised further questions about the surveys, but to borrow the explanation of Marco earlier and Doris, sure, you could have all this data coming out there, but you need to understand the story and the fine print, the granular information, such as the one that was offered by PBED and the EdNation team. So I would love that this discussion continues, and there's even a request, Marco, meron na daw pa kayo para sa senatorial candidates, no? Baka meron na rin daw scorecard for education, gusto rin na nilang malaman. We'll see, and hopefully that's gonna be in the planning of the next webinar of this series on the Philippine Learning Crisis. And I would like to express our deepest gratitude to our 4 outstanding panelists. Rafaelo Panghulan, representing the sector of our students from the Polytechnic University of the Philippines, Marco de los Reyes from the Philippine Business for Education, Doris Ferrer from the Private Education Assistance Committee, and of course, Dr. Fei Hidalgo from NTC and all the other institutions that she's part of. But as a matter of putting together what we have seen here, mayroon pong kwento sa likod ng bawat numero. At hindi como mayroon na tayong numero, ay magpapadala na lang tayo na ito na ang dapat nating maging batayan sa ating pagdedesisyon hinggil sa ating boto. Today, we were able to model to our participants and to all of you who will be accessing this video after this webinar that there's a lot of thinking process that you will need to go through, no? Sabi nga nila, ito ay kakayahan nating maglirip at mag-isip para doon sa kawastuhan ng ating magiging pagpili. Wala po tayong pagpili rito na sinasabi nating mali o tama, pero sinasabihan po natin na pag-aralan nating mabuti ang magiging implikasyon ng ating boto, lalo na ito ang binabanggit, minumutawi at ipinakikita ng ating mga kandidato. So we will now ask our 4 distinguished panelists to give their final words as we are going to wrap things up for this session. And in particular, we would love to hear from them why it is really crucial for voters, especially students, their families, and the teachers and educators as well, to consider the findings of the analysis that we have offered today. And we'll start off with the representative of the student sector, Elo. Go ahead, Elo.
Ayun, maraming salamat po sa bumubuo ng programang ito. Simple lamang po ang siguro nais kong ipahayag sa ating mga kapwa estudyante na nanonood ngayong hapon na sana naway sa darating na halalan, bumoto tayo ng tama. Aralin muna natin ang ating mga kandidato gaya ng ating pag-aaral sa pang-araw-araw nating pagkatuto sa ating mga eskwelahan. And kailangan i-consider natin sa bawat kandidato na ating shadan sa darating na Mayo ay isipin natin kung ano nga ba ang magiging kinabukasan ng bawat isa. Dahil naniniwala tayo at naniniwala ko na ang kabataan pa din ay ang pag-asa ng bayan. Ngayon darating na halalan, mahalaga ang boto ng bawat isa dahil almost 40 million registered voters from the youth sector ang magpapahayag ng kanilang tunay na suporta, tunay na advokasya para sa ating bayan. Kaya po muli, mula sa sektor ng mga mag-aral, sa sektor ng mga scholar, bumoto ng tama, aralin, makiusig, makibahagi sa pagbabago. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Elo. And we now turn to Marco, whose organization is the partner of National Teachers College for running this webinar series since last year. So Marco, your final words with our audience, please.
Yeah. Number one, thank you very much, Ed. Thank you, NTC, for giving us this platform, this opportunity to air the scorecards. It needs to be seen by many people. And let me address my point the media also. Please take a look at this. Our candidates, please ask them about education. We've seen the debates, parang konti yung tanong or walang tanong about education. So please, in the next debates and in the discussions with candidates, please ask them about education. There are no excuses, ladies and gentlemen. We must never settle for less. Piliin kung sino pinakamagaling, masipag, hindi pwede ang pwede na. Bakit? Information is right in our fingertips. Kaharap natin yung screen natin almost more than 18 hours a day. So there's no excuse for you to say that you don't know and haven't researched about candidates. Maraming salamat.
Thank you, Marco. And we quickly turn to Doris this time for her own parting words. Doris?
As an education advocate, no, so siguro I'd like to say na we cannot afford to make a mistake this 2022 elections. Before COVID-19, we were already below standard. You know that all international assessments tell us na may problema tayo sa sektor. Nag-COVID-19 pa. Therefore, you can just imagine kung gaano kalaki ang problema na kailangan nating harapin ngayon. Hindi lang natin kailangan ng isang DepEd at isang CHED at TESDA na napakasipag. Kailangan natin ng isang presidente na talagang supportive, an education president who will prioritize education and be the central person, no? Sabi nga natin noon sa COVID-19, dapat whole of nation approach. Yung education ganun din. Our problem in the education sector should be a whole of nation approach. Hindi kaya ng DepEd i-ensure ang internet connectivity, DICT yan. Hindi kaya ng DepEd pakainin lahat ng mga bata, DSWD, DOH yan, etc. So kailangan natin ng isang education president at we cannot afford to make a mistake. Maraming salamat sa National Teachers College sa PIBED. Dr. Fermin, ang galing mong maging moderator talaga. At we're very happy to be here this afternoon.
Thank you, Doris, for the kind words and the powerful reminder. Hindi na natin kayang magkamali. At ang isa pang version nun, hindi na tayo pwedeng magkamali muli. Okay, so let's try to make sure that all the lessons that history affords us will really be demonstrated as we make their vote, no? And of course, everyone say that when you listen to this lady, you would really have to understand that she has seen it all. And so we call upon Dr. Fe for her parting words. Dr. Fe?
Well, yes. I'm really very thankful for this occasion, because it has given me more. Even if I have seen it all, I still want to see more. Um, I like to think that the future depends on education, and the leaders of education and the leaders of the country um, will need to inform the public about their decisions, about their blueprints for education. Because education is life, no? Progressive information shared with the public, like this afternoon's activity of sharing what the dreams or the blueprints of our candidates, is so important. We have witnessed surprises in the things that they have shared with us this afternoon. And I'm sure the candidates will keep on improving, changing, and listening to the public and the prospects of improving education in this country, which is very important. So more of this, Ed Fermin. Ed Fermin has always been an advocate of quality education, and I'm sure this will go on until we shall finally decide on election day who is going to be our education leader. Thanks, Ed Fermin, for your very capable facilitation and the ideas that you keep on sharing from time to time as we engage in these activities. No? And to the leadership of NTC, thank you very much. Well, the leadership is Ed Fermin and his colleagues. Thank you very much.
Maraming salamat po, Dr. Fe. Kami po ay nasa kamay ng mga pinagpipitagang haligi ng sektor ng edukasyon, lalo na po na si Dr. Fe, ang aming Flora A. Ilagan Professorial Chair for Educational Leadership. At ito po ang mga klase ng mga paksa na aming pinag-uusapan sa mga klaseng hinahawakan ni Dr. Fe. Sa ngalan po ng National Teachers College, ang inang tanglaw at kakampi ninyo sa pagtingin sa mas masigabong bukas para sa edukasyon ng bawat bata na siyang bubuo ng isang mas masiglang lipunan para sa lahat, at sa pakikipagtulungan ng Philippine Business for Education, particular na po ang Education Nation Team. Malaking pagpapasalamat po, at sana ay kinapulutan po natin ng mahalagang aral ang ating diskusyon at talakayan sa hapong ito. We believe that if we are able to actually choose the right people, particularly on the basis of their appreciation of our direction towards making education change the fate of our people, then definitely tataas muli ang ating pagtingin sa kung sino tayo at kung ano ang kayang gawin ng bawat Pilipino. Hanggang sa muli, maraming salamat po.
May krisis sa edukasyon. Huli ang reading comprehension skills ng ating mga mag-aaral.
The country performed the poorest out of 79 countries in reading literacy.
Nananatiling issue ang access sa magandang kalidad ng edukasyon. Maraming kabataan ang napag-iwanan, lalo na ngayong pandemya.
Pero yung aking lalaki talaga, mama, yun talaga nag-sobrang degrade. Muntik na nga hindi makagraduate. Sabi niya, mama, gusto ko nang pumasok.
Walang sapat na resources para sa mga guro at kulang ang nutrisyon ng mga mag-aaral. Marami pa tayong kailangang gawa na aksyon. Kailangang gawing prioridad ng edukasyon ngayon. Bumoto para sa edukasyon.
Kailangan magkaroon ng reforma sa edukasyon sa Pilipinas, ayon ngayon kay Senator Sherwin Gatchalian. Ito ay matapos lumabas ang maituturing na poor performance ng Pilipinas sa ilang international studies tulad ng
we need to tackle the Philippine crisis together. The National Teachers College commits itself to responding to this need. While there are several ways to address the crisis, NTC believes we need to begin with our teachers dahil ang bawat magiting na guro ay tanglaw. We seek to prepare teachers who will no longer just focus on reading, writing, and arithmetic, but on reasoning, resilience, and responsibility. We seek to enhance teachers' capabilities in addressing the needs of a variety of learners. We seek to advise teachers in terms of their personal well-being and the wellness of the communities they are part of. But we need to find support for a great majority of our teachers for their continuous personal and professional development. As we continue to make professional teacher education more affordable, fun, and flexible, frustration-free and innovative, we shall work with distinct partners in taking care of our teachers' needs. Dahil sa NTC, kagitingan ang gawing tanglaw ang bawat guro ng bayan.